If you're anything like me, then you've no doubt watched countless videos about the best settings for YouTube. Problem is, nobody seems to agree. Do you increase the bitrate? Do you upscale? Is there a certain codec that works best? And what do you mean by best anyway? Are we talking about fastest upload times, better looking video, both? Well, at least we can all agree that format and codec are two completely different things, right? Right? What's up guys, my name is Kyle and I make videos to help content creators like you. Mostly memes, but sometimes we do science here too. And if you've been really confused about the difference between format and codec and what the best settings actually are for YouTube, then you've come to the right place. I upload the same 1-minute video over 100 times with different codecs, different settings, different resolutions, so I could answer the ultimate question. Turns out it's not 42. And the results are probably going to surprise you. I tested all the codecs in DaVinci Resolve. Now, while I did do that in DaVinci, it should translate to Final Cut, Premiere, any editing software you have. So all this information is still applicable to you. So to start off, let's answer what's the difference between a codec and format anyway. If you already know the answer to this and what some of these other things are, feel free to skip it. If not, let's dive right into that. To keep it simple, format is the form your content takes. Is it a Blu-ray? Is it a DVD? Is it a book? Well, obviously it's not a book, but you know what I mean. It's the basic form your content is going to take and includes things like FPS, color depth, and aspect ratio. So if a format is the book of your content, codec is the language it's written in. YouTube understands a lot of languages, but it's more fluent in some. For example, here are some things we can ignore. DPX, EXR, IMF, JPEG 2000, and MJ2 are all going to give you an image sequence and not a video. This is true for the clip I showed in the beginning. If you switch it around, you will get a video, but it'll be a DCP. DCP stands for Digital Cinema Package and will split your audio and video into separate components, as will the MXF Atom option, which won't help us because we can only upload audio and video together on YouTube. Although YouTube, if you're watching this, separate audio would be awesome. Know all those people that make tutorials? Music, no music. Letting people have a toggle to turn that off and on would be awesome. Also, copyright claims would be super easy to fix. Think about it. Okay, so what do these other things mean? 1080p versus 1080i. I is for interlaced, and what it does is give you twice the frames or pictures as FPS, but it only gives you half of each picture. YouTube recommends de-interlacing these and converting them into normal 1080p anyway, so we can skip these. So what are we actually going to test? MP4, AVI, MXF OP1A, and QuickTime. I'm not going to bore you with all the codecs I use, but just know there's a lot of them. H.264 and H.265 both have native NVIDIA settings, presumably because I have an NVIDIA card, so I tested that, along with its best, constant, and variable bitrate settings. DNxHD and DNxHR stands for Digital Nonlinear Extensible High Definition and High Resolution, respectively. Basically, HD is for 1080p and HR is for 4K. I didn't bother with lower resolutions for obvious reasons. 444, 422, and 420, these stand for color depth, and more numbers equals wider range. YUV is color scheme in use for analog television and a few other applications, but I was curious, so I uploaded it anyway. You can just stick with RGB for YouTube. Bit depth, more bits equals better quality, which is why we're going to test that. Now that we know a little bit more about what we're exporting, let's go ahead and test the render and upload speeds of the codecs. For render speed, there wasn't much variation. H.264 and H.265 were around a minute both in their MP4 and QuickTime format. GoPro codecs were about the same. Higher bit and uncompressed codecs had slightly higher render times, around 3 minutes, which had me feeling pretty good. I mean, we're trying to fight compression, right? Uncompressed seems like the way to go. But is it? Here's where things started to get pretty interesting. Upload times for H.264 and H.265 were the fastest at around a minute. Uncompressed came in at over an hour and a half. That's if it didn't fail. Curse you, YouTube! Everything else, with the exception of XDCam, which were pretty fast, fell between 7 and 25 minutes, so significantly longer as a whole. But maybe you got some extra time on your hands and you just want the best video possible. How did uncompressed compare to the original footage, and how it compared to something like H.265? Uncompressed compared to the original, as you might imagine, has compression and artifacting in it. You can see it in the black, you can see my face is blurry compared to the original. Now, quick disclaimer, you're watching this on YouTube, which is compressing the original footage, and in the case of the footage I've already uploaded, it's now compressed twice. So you won't see what I do on my 4K monitors at full screen. So obviously we can't avoid compression, so how do the codecs compare to each other? Well, I couldn't find a single codec that looked significantly different than another one. They all looked the same. Some were actually worse. The uncompressed and H.265 were pretty similar, but in some areas, uncompressed had this weird banding going on. GoPro had a similar issue, and the YUV had this weird color thing. But what about H.265? I've been told by the internet this is so much better than H.264. Nope. I could not see a difference. Obviously, the artifacting is a little bit different, but I couldn't say one looked better than the other. Both in upload times and quality, they were pretty much identical. But what about bitrate? Does cranking up the bitrate actually fight against YouTube compression? So given that H.264 and H.265 were the fastest and didn't have any noticeable quality difference to anything else, I took those and uploaded several versions of them at 10,000, 50,000, and 100,000 kilobits per second. Times varied, as you might imagine. The larger file sizes equal longer upload times, but not substantially longer. As far as quality goes, survey says, I don't know what to tell you, they look the same. I couldn't see a single difference between them. You let me know if you see a difference. And this kind of makes sense, right? YouTube has to take that video and stream it to mobile phones, to computers. They're going to crunch it down to make sure it streams smoothly to whatever they need it to. Okay, so we've tried codecs, we've tried bitrate. What about upscaling? Maybe upscaling, making the quality better, will fight against compression? Well, it actually does, which was surprising. I didn't expect it to, but it actually makes the video better. So I upscaled my footage to 4K, and it does reduce the amount of artifacting, and it looks more like the original. But before you run off making all your 1080p footage 4K, this came at a cost. That's right, it took over an hour to upload. But maybe there's a happy medium here. Maybe we can get some more resolution, a little bit less time. So I tried 2K. It looked about half as good, which makes sense because it took, well, half the time. But before I get too far, I did upload this at 100,000 kilobits per second. So I went back and I tried it at 10,000 kilobits per second. And it showed that it still had a lot of that detail back in, but it only took about 16 minutes to upload. So this one might actually be worth it, just leaving it as a low bit rate, but upscaling it to 4K. But a few other things that you might want to consider. 40% of people are watching on their phone and they don't have 4K screens. Even if they did, they probably can't tell the difference, which means 40% of people can't tell all the extra time and effort and detail that you just put in your video. And as a side tip, when I downscaled the 4K to 1080p, it actually looked worse than just the 1080p. So consider your audience. Are they watching on their phone or are they watching on the computer? Now, if you're already shooting in 4K, by all means, just keep it at 4K, but just don't upscale to 8K. There's no reason to do that unless you really, really want to. So we've done bitrate, we've done codec, we've done upscaling. That's everything, right? Well, not completely. See, I haven't told you everything. I actually don't know what the fastest codec and settings are. I noticed that some of the higher bitrate ones were uploading faster than some of their smaller counterparts. Which begs the question, is there variability in uploading to YouTube? I took multiple versions of H.265 and H.264. I uploaded them 3 times in a row, and at least 1 out of every 3 had significantly higher upload time, almost twice as much, sometimes more. YouTube has 3 stages to its uploads: the SD upload, the content check, and the HD processing. Generally, the SD upload gives you a time which is close enough, but after that, you're kind of left to wonder. HD processing could take anywhere from a minute to an hour, depending on which codec and bitrate I used, which is why I spent so many days sitting in front of the computer timing it. What exactly does this mean? I don't know. Perhaps there's something on YouTube's end that makes it take longer. Maybe it's something with internet. I don't know. I did this at different times of day, pretty much the same results. But what it does mean is next time someone tells you they have a faster codec, ask them to upload it at least 2 more times just to see how it does. They might have just gotten lucky that one time. Now, this wouldn't be a complete test unless I tested direct upload. I did this in DaVinci Resolve, but Final Cut and Premiere both have their own versions of this, where you can upload directly from your editing software. I did that and the results were a little surprising at first. First one came in at over 8 minutes, which was 6 minutes longer than the other upload times. But as I did more tests, it came down to around 2.5 minutes, which is around a 1.5 minute upload time, which is basically where we started. So there doesn't seem to be any quality loss or any time loss doing direct upload. Now, should you do direct upload? It's entirely up to you. It might save you a few steps, maybe not, but it doesn't hurt if you want to do it that way. Whew, now that's a lot of information, a lot packed in there. As far as I can tell, H.264, H.265, the same, the fastest. I think that's what I'm going to go with, and I might even upscale from time to time if I think the quality of the video needs it. Tell me what you use in the comments below. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more. Excuse me while I delete 100 videos from my YouTube channel and 160 gigs from my hard drive. Peace out. We'll see you later.